guys, so it is the end of May here. Actually, approaching the end of May. And I can't believe it, but like 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was like 10 inches of snow on the ground. And ever since the sun and the rain came, wow, things have started to pop. Some of our leaves are getting eaten by the spongy moths, formerly known as the gypsy moths here. So we still have leaves on our tree, but probably not for long. But they don't bother the herbaceous plants. And I wanted to give you just a little update on the pollinator garden. So if you recall, this is something that we started in mid-September. So as we were taking up the lawn for the bulb lawn and planting those 70,000 bulbs, we also ended up inevitably taking up the lawn here to create this nice organic shape for this pollinator bed. And we actually usually do no-dig methods where we just put cardboard on top of the pre-existing sod, and then we put a layer of topsoil compost and then a layer of mulch, and then we plant in that. But we ran out of cardboard. We used about 1/4 acre of cardboard, and we were scrounging for cardboard like crazy. So we figured we'd just take up the sod, which is interesting because then we could actually compare and contrast. What I found with like a little bit more of the no-dig methods is that we definitely get more vole pressure with the cardboard and then the topsoil compost. This doesn't seem to have been a problem in this bed. And just to give you an overview of kind of like what we did here, we're going more for like peaches and corals fading into kind of light pinks into raspberries, punctuated with whites and also these red purples. Now, what happened is that when I started this bed, it was pretty late in the season. I started planting in late September through mid-October, and you get a lot of fall blooming plants during that time. So what I see here when I'm looking, and I think this is why you plan gardens and sometimes you plan them in layers, is that we don't have a lot of early bloomers, but you could see that phlox home fries, I just watered this bed as you could see, this is just about finished, but these were some early bloomers, and actually you could see it's pretty low growing. So this area with the stones, I have pretty low growing plants. This is one of our native phloxes, although this is a cultivar. It's called Phlox subulata, and it's a creeping phlox, but this is called candy stripe. I really love this one, and I actually bought it in bulk, and I liked it so much. You could see I planted most of it down here, but I just got some bulk ones and just planted some of them up here. So most of this stuff had been planted last year, but I just interspersed with some plants that I got here and there. And you'll see another early bloomer is the dianthus. So these are plants that are often seen in more rock garden areas. So I kind of planted them a little bit higher up next to the stones here so that they don't get too wet of feet. And because we actually raised up the bed a bit more, these don't get very wet. Although I have to say, what happened with this dry riverbed look for the stepping stones is that it wasn't so dry during the fall because we did get some pretty powerful rainstorms, and this was a stream, wasn't it, Sander? It turned into a stream one time.
Really just over there where you're sitting, because there's a low spot, but that's quite high over there.
It is. And so anyway, I love the look of this phlox, so I was like, you know what, I might as well get some more. And I have some with the, kind of the snowflake white ones with the pinwheels. And then you'll see some of the sedums are actually coming up. So I actually have some succulents here. This is, I believe, saponaria. It's another type of crawling plant. I have some low-growing oregano. This is elfin thyme. And then you'll see, again, some of the hens and chicks, the sempervivums here. So it's kind of cool to be able, here's another sempervivum. They're just tucked away in there. It's like, I love gardening like this because there's so much to look at and see. So if you believe, can you believe it? This bed has over 170 different types of species and varieties of plants in here. And I realized I really love planting this way, where I kind of just mix and match all different types of plants. Rarely do you see like a lot of these herbaceous perennials with kind of rock garden plants and succulents with grasses and sedges and all that kind of stuff combined. But you're just trying to find the microclimates in your, and the right conditions within your garden. Here's a bush poppy right here, a little bush mallow that kind of also crawls. So you'll see a lot of crawling plants here. These are the geums. Trifolium, I think that's called, but I can't remember the species name. And then some of the alliums are popping up. And then something else that's blooming here is the catch flies. So you can see that these actually started to bloom, and right here as well. And then just like a couple weeks ago, we did have some tulips, but you could also see that the tulips have lost their heads, except for that one right there. Strangely enough, it's just starting to emerge, so that seems to be a little slower. And then these are also geums. This cultivar is called Petticoat Peach, and then I also have Petticoat Rose. So I planted kind of the peach and corals more in this section, and then the pink ones are more towards this section. So I'll show you, I think some are actually in bloom here. So this is the rose color. And then this geum right here, I love this. Look at the seed heads of these. Aren't they just like fairy tale dust? It's so darling. And then the sedums right here that you see that I've planted have this kind of like raspberry hue. And the alliums, again, are kind of punctuated with that purple red. And some of that other purple red that I have planted here are going to be the liatris, and the verbenas are kind of that purple red shade. I actually have grasses planted in there that are the Muhlenbergia capillaris, the ruby color, and then they also have this kind of purplish hue as well. So some of that will be coming through more towards the fall. So, this is my first real season seeing these plants kind of spread and bloom out. And ultimately what I'd like to see is that these plants will spread so you don't see any more of this hardwood mulch, because the weeds that are coming in, like this one, come in through seed, because I know they're not coming up from below because we removed the sod, right? So you have some seed that blows in, and I really haven't had to maintain this bed across the seasons, largely because we did take off the sod and we put this kind of thick layer of mulch, and we're going to be planting very densely. The way that I'd prefer to manage my garden is that I would have to just cut back after a while, where I'm just like, wow, this is so floriferous, and it's become so, I wouldn't say congested, but filled, that they're kind of like bumping shoulder to shoulder with one another. And then I could actually cut and divide and propagate and give away and sell, or whatever you want to do. So ideally, these will all kind of be like friendly brothers and sisters, kind of bumping elbows with one another. And then the only, errant weeding that I would have to do probably would be coming in from the sides. So you see this where the grass like touches this area, you're going to get a few more weeds, and we'll just have to kind of redefine the bed edges again and again. But I really like the way this looks. I'll probably end up planting some more early bloomers so that we could see blooms from May through November essentially, and then we'll get those really nice seed heads throughout the winter months, which really come in handy for the songbirds. I mean, I often see our slate-colored juncos out here literally jumping to eat the seed heads. even though we feed them in the winter some bird seed, they still want to get into that seed head and get some of those seeds for maybe some extra energy through the winter season. But we also have this for the birds too. So, you know, I love looking out the window from the common house and seeing them use the water dish. So I actually had another carved stone here, but I noticed our chipmunk was running behind in our shade garden, and he has this designated path. And so I put that stone back there for him, and I noticed that he likes to use that when he's running through in the path and drink the water. And we just put a pedestal in there too, and I noticed that the blue jays particularly like to use the pedestal. It's a little crooked, so I'm gonna have to fix that. But I'm so excited for this garden, and I think, like, you know, this is garden number kind of 3.5, 4 that we've put in, but this is a big garden, and like I said, there's like 170 different types of plants in here, and I'm still slowly planting it up. I'm still kind of like feeling and setting into this whole garden and seeing what kind of pops up throughout the season. But that's like really part of the fun of all this, is actually seeing things grow and spread and bloom, and in some cases die back and what doesn't do well. Oh, and one more thing that I'd like to show you. I do have some kind of shrubs in here. So I have a kind of a shrub rose. It's obviously not in bloom, but I have one that's an apricot, and that one's a more rose colored, actually, like a pink color. And then you'll notice that this is kind of hilled up a little bit more. Well, this is in a terracotta pot, so I might want to cover this. And I noticed that this plant wasn't really winter hardy. I kind of, you know, wanted to push my limits here. This is an albizia. Can't remember the cultivar name, maybe chocolate something. I'll have to double check on that. But this gets really cool, feathery, pink blooms that look like the heads of that GM plant that I showed you that have that really nice feathery seed head. And this can be a pest in areas where it's warmer, but it won't set seed here. And I noticed, I was like, well, if we have a mild winter, this will probably do well. Well, we didn't have a mild winter. We had a very cold, erratic winter, as you may have seen from the bulb story that we shared. So if you didn't see that, we'll link to it here. So what I'm doing now is we're putting it into a terracotta pot, and terracotta pots are porous, so they breathe, so we'll be able to interact with the rest of the environment. And I'll pull it out in the winter months, and I'll probably keep it in the chicken coop because we don't have the greenhouse set up yet. And that will be warm enough for this plant, fingers crossed, technically, to be able to make it through to the next winter. So I'll just overwinter it indoors and, you know, hope for the best. And, you know, people do that with their figs as well, if they have turkey figs.
When it grows up, would you ever leave it in there?
I probably wouldn't, unless our zone...
I have to always take it out.
I'll probably always take it out before the winter hits.
Okay.
Yeah, so, and people do that, you know, with a lot of their patio plants or anything. They'll take them back into their greenhouse and overwinter them and then take them out in the summer. And then we also have this one, which is a Kalmia. I think it would probably prefer to be in a little bit more shade. So this is Kalmia latifolia. This might be red elf. I can't remember which one, which cultivar I had planted, but this is a mountain laurel. And when we didn't have our deer fence, I put this fence around it, but you know what? I kept the fence around it. Even though they're supposed to be deer resistant, when we didn't have the deer fence, we noticed the deer in the area actually did nibble on some of them, but I think they nibbled, tried it, and they're like, ugh, that was not good. So we had some nibbles and not like a complete defoliation, which last year we had complete defoliation of our rhododendrons. This year they were so floriferous, it was just pretty amazing. And then we have Lupinus perennis, lupin. So this is the like a kind of a raspberry color shade of lupin, and it actually grows a lot lower. So if you know some of the native lupinus, it grows actually quite large and bushy. It actually looks like a big herbaceous shrub. So that'll be kind of nice to actually see that grow. And then we have a lot of the guaras here, the wand flowers, in all different colors. They're actually obviously not in bloom, and we just got 2 more, so there's 2 high ones. We saw at Home Depot, actually. Most of the plants here are from bluestone perennials, local or rare roots. I really love those places to shop for some interesting plants. And then you'll see some of the more moss phloxes again right here. And again, they grow really low. And I don't want to hide the rocks. It's okay if some of them are, you know, feathered in. So I had to really strategically plant in a way that it didn't cover some of the small, cute things that we have, you know, in here, like the stones and the wood. And then also you'll see the hand-carved fungi or the mushrooms, which everybody always asks if they're real. You know, they want to actually go out and touch them to see if they are real. But you know, in the springtime and in the fall, we do actually get a bunch of mushrooms that grow up in here. So combined with those mushrooms, with the actual real mushrooms, it kind of like plays tricks on you. So again, there's lots of little things to kind of look at and play around in this garden. This garden really makes me excited, as you could tell, and I'm really excited to plant, continually seeing how it grows and planting it up along the way. So I hope you enjoyed that little tour. Early spring tour, I guess, of this garden. But like I said, very happy how it's turning out.